Welcome to Drupal Pupils. Join us as we bring together avid Drupal enthusiasts in a laid-back fireside setting. Today's show is proudly sponsored by Cheppers, your one-stop Drupal shop, where expertise meets innovation, and AcroCommerce, a digital commerce agency that leverages the power of Drupal to conquer B2B's most complex e-commerce challenges. Whether you're new to Drupal or fine-tuning your mastery, this is the place to be. So sit back, tune in, and please feel free to comment with any questions we might have missed along the way. Thank you.
Drupal Pupils, the most Drupally place on the planet.
On the show today, we have Robert Salvén from Aalto University. Thank you, Robert, for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be.
How's your day been so far?
It's been a good day today. It's been a bit of a mixed bag. A lot of compliance and documentation and data privacy stuff and AI thing is going on at the moment. So it's been a lot of Word document and template filling. So far today, but all good.
Okay, all good. So it sounds like a busy day, and we'll get into some of the AI stuff. But first, let's hear about you and Aalto University, which is in Finland, as you are. So yeah, tell us about yourself and your journey to being head of digital experience at Aalto.
Robert Salvén, head of digital experience at Aalto University, and my journey I think is a little bit weird. I've always been a little bit of a nerdy guy, but at the same time I'm a little bit of a social guy, so like a social nerd. I started my career actually in kind of more sales and marketing. And then after graduating and working, I spent a year traveling around the world with my wife. And that was in 2008 and 2009. And then we had this massive fun financial crisis that hit, which knocked 30% of our travel budget out. And when we came back, the situation was not the greatest. But there was a really fun like upstart tech company. We're doing websites that I joined in a sales capacity and took over sales operations there. And then I really got into like web development, websites, and all the things that you could do with it. And then after having spent a few years there, I actually started my own company. So I had a tech startup for 2.5 years. Ticketing industry was the big thing in social selling. Mm-hmm. So we integrated a Drupal website actually into Facebook. And had an e-commerce solution where when you bought something together with your friends, you'd get a progressive discount. So the ticketing industry was the big one. Basically, you have a hockey game or something, it's not sold out. You buy a ticket, it costs $20, but you get a friend and then you both pay 18. And then every friend that you get, like the price just keeps going down. And it took off and it was actually a lot of fun in the beginning. We actually sold concert tickets for Avicii, which is a DJ and pretty like famous and did a bunch of gigs. Swedish guy, unfortunately died a few years back, or committed suicide if I remember correctly. So we've actually sold tickets to his gig. At that time, he wasn't world class though. And football games, hockey, and that kind of stuff. But then the ticketing industry were like, hey, why are we paying a commission for you guys? Like we could kind of do this thing ourselves if we wanted to. That was belly up for us basically. So then I transitioned to take on digital communications at Fiskars. Fiskars might be familiar to some of you. Scissors, axes, and all that kind of stuff. It also owns some luxury and lifestyle brands like Waterford, Wedgwood, and those kind of things. So I did corporate communications there. And the core website there was also on Drupal. So that was kind of fun. I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And then I decided that this whole quarterly profit thing isn't as much fun as it used to be. And I was kind of looking for the next challenge because I was doing more and more IR stuff all the time because I have a master's in business and a background in finance on that side. So I just kind of dove into that and didn't like it anymore and wanted to get back into the techie thing. And then chances collided and Aalto had an opening for a head of digital communications at that time. So I applied and I got the job. And then I've been at Aalto, I think, ever since 7 years. So it's been quite the journey. It started a lot more on like digital communication. So a lot of the stuff was content, social media, video and image production and all that kind of stuff, and then managing the website. But then like Aalto.fi and all of the things that we've been doing has just grown so massively that all of the other things have kind of like fallen off of my plate. And it became more about design and service design and all of those kind of things. And then we started building a design system and then the team changed to be a digital experience and analytics because we want to be data driven above all else team. And I've been heading that team now, I think, for the past about 2 years. And Aalto University is a fascinating place. As a university, we're only 15 years old. So we haven't been around for very long. And it isn't your traditional university with law and medicine and all kinds of faculties. We actually focus just on three fields. So we have art and design and architecture is one. Then we have business and economics, so you can get a degree in that. But then the last field is then technology, or science, more pure science, ranging from chemical engineering, electrical engineering, the School of Science, which has like computer sciences and all kinds of things. And then the whole point is to see how these fields like combine and intersect. So we're looking for like multidisciplinary innovations where these three fields combine. And as many other universities, trying to solve the whole grand societal challenge of making the world a more sustainable place. So that's kind of the key driver for everything. So in a way, like the foundation of this is three old universities. So there was the University of Economics, the University of Art and Design, and then Technical University that were combined, and they're all hundreds of years old. But Aalto as an organization is only 15. So we're kind of also like a startup in a way. There's been a lot of growing pains along the way and establishing all of the things. And so there's been pretty major undertakings that, you know, everyone has been able to sink their teeth into. And there's been a lot of things where it's like, hey, how do we do this? You know, like traditional organizations have all of these structures and things, and enterprise architecture and IT and everything is like all established. But this was kind of like, oh, we got to figure out how to do all of these things. So it's been a pretty fascinating journey.
It sounds like that's kind of let you guys innovate a little bit faster than potentially some other universities, and Kyle and James here too, all in the university space. But that's great to hear, and we're going to move into that. So yeah, so first I do want to set the foundation that you just spoke at DrupalCamp Finland. And we're going to talk about that presentation a little bit. And you start out with talking about the Gartner hype cycle, which you know, it's essentially 5 phases in which technology that, you know, new technologies come to the market, how they're viewed, and the cycle that they go through. So tell us about that cycle and where we're at with AI.
Well, I think we can all pretty much agree that we have definitely peaked. And I think most of us are starting to get into the trough of disillusionment. I think everyone, at least I don't know what the situation is in the organizations and in the cities and the kind of spheres where you guys are, but at least in Finland right now, AI is more of a, oh, why AI? God. Haven't we heard enough already? Like everyone's getting kind of bored. And also because the hype cycle was so big when GPT and all of these things came and people started trying it, and they didn't really understand exactly what you could do with it and how you could work with it. So there was a lot of disappointment as well. You know, people went in and said, write me a press release for this and this thing. And then like most of what you get is kind of garbage. Like, well, we can't publish this. Like this AI tool is, you know, rubbish. And then after that, you're not going to go back either because you were pretty bitterly disappointed. So then when the hype cycle even continued to build, those that had been disappointed by their first or second experience, they're even more so like, can we stop talking about this, please? So I think a lot of us, or a lot of society is probably in that disillusionment phase. But I think, you know, with all adopting these kind of new technologies, it's always personal, right? I mean, there's some people that are still, you know, super high in the hype cycle, and then there's people that have already evolved past that disillusionment and are already starting to find themselves being productive with these tools. I mean, personally, for me, I'm kind of shocked now where basically I feel like I would now say that I use like ChatGPT or similar products on a daily level. Several times a day, whereas 2-3 months ago I would still have said like I'm a weekly user. So it's also fascinating like how quickly it's just become a thing that you do now. It's become part of like the workflow for almost everything you do. But then again, the whole point here is, as a university, we want to leverage the power of AI and data-driven like thinking and doing. And if we want to do that, then we have to help everyone on this journey. We have to bring everyone through this hype, into this, through this disillusionment, and then into the sort of plateau of productivity. And going around and telling everyone that AI is great is just, it doesn't work like that. That's just not going to get people to do it unless they're already one of those early adopters that jumped on the train. So we need to come up with ways of bringing AI to where people are actually doing things. where the work is happening, and preferably not in a way that we're talking about it being AI. It should be just a natural part of the work and the things that you are doing. So basically you come in and you do the thing that you do, and then you go, wow, this thing has gotten better, or like, wow, like you can do this, like this is really great. And not have this sort of powered by AI, or not having to go and copy paste stuff into a different thing and upload files there and stuff. It needs to happen where the work is happening. And that's kind of been the mindset now for us, I think, for the last sort of 6 months to a year now, where it's about, okay, we have these powerful tools. How can we embed them into the things that people are doing on a daily level? So it's a completely seamless experience. So we don't need to sell the concept of AI anymore.
That's powerful. Yeah, because you mentioned in your presentation that, right, there's a wide range of people that are still skeptical. There's people that are using it, but there's people that are scared too. So like in the university space, like being able to help your users and prospective students, right, that's a wide range, to be able to help them through wherever they're looking to search for. If AI can be the power behind that, we'll get into how you're efficiently doing it. I think that's a great way to utilize the tool.
And part of it is like, how do you find content? How do you interact with content? How can you get through like various types of processes? But I think as the head of digital, the digital team sits within our communications team. So a lot of the focus that we have then, especially when it comes to Aalto.fi and Drupal, it's about like, okay, we have 1,300 content producers on Aalto.fi. So how can we make their lives easier? Well, most of the people that are producing content or distributing content on our website, they're people that have it as just a small part of their job. They can be a research assistant, they can be a professor, they can be in the support functions, they can have a very wide variety of roles. And usually the content on Aalto.fi part is not something that they kind of cherish. Like, I love Drupal, but not everyone does, and producing and distributing content is not the most fun part of their day. So okay, how can we make their lives easier and faster? And then also, how can we improve the content that they are working on? How can we make that content as good as possible? Because the better that content is, the better it's going to be the uptake on the other end, the more easier it's going to be to find, and the faster people are going to get to solving whatever problem they want, or getting the information that they need to be able to complete whatever process or whatever workload that they are working on. So there's a lot of sides to that equation where AI can play a very, very powerful role.
Yeah.
But I did want to highlight one of the things that you lifted up when we were talking about the hype cycle, is we do have to acknowledge also that last group, the people that are actually afraid of AI. I mean, people are going around and thinking Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Skynet is here. There's, of course, that I don't personally believe that, but I can like understand where that kind of a fear is coming from. But if we go to a very rational space about, hey, can AI take my job? Will AI make me redundant? And that kind of a fear, of course, is one where we need to also show people that, hey, actually, by using AI, you can become even more efficient. You can become even more, like, I don't like the word powerful, but like influential. Like you can make yourself also a better and more productive employee, and therefore like finding the benefit on that end, rather than having that fear about, oh, my job's going to get taken from me. So that's also a thing we need to consider. And again, trying to tell those people, again, the same thing about, hey, you just go here and do things in this website and copy paste your Excel in, and it can analyze stuff for you. People aren't going to do that. It's just not going to work. So again, it's about embedding those tools to making that use so that it's entirely seamless.
Exactly. And that's a great transition into what we've been talking about. You guys have essentially embedded AI into Drupal, which is has made the experience for prospective students, your users, and internal users, employees, better. So give us a general overview of what you guys have done and the benefits you've seen.
So basically, everything started from the fact that, well, immediately when we saw GPT, we were like, okay, like this is crazy powerful. We need to be able to use this. And the first thought there again was the fact that, like, can we connect this to Drupal somehow? And of course, at that point, like getting access to APIs and all of those things was very hard. The queues were very long. And then at the same time, there were quite a few sort of compliance items that were not optimal in terms of how OpenAI uses the data that you give it. So our IT security and data privacy officer were not too excited about the whole concept. But luckily, the people in our IT organization felt kind of the same way as we did. So they immediately set about saying, okay, how can we get our own instance of GPT up and running, where we can kind of protect it and make sure that that data isn't running or being used by other parties and being collected in other spaces. So we now have our own GPT models running on Microsoft Azure, OpenAI. We have the full stack that you can get in Europe at the moment, which is basically 3.5 and 4, the regular models, and then 3.5 large and 4 large. And now we should be getting 4.0 pretty soon. At least the rumors are that it'll be made available to us soon. So once we had that and then had our own API keys for that, then we had a secure environment for connecting to the GPT engine. And then we started to set about, okay, what's the first thing that we can do? What would be a kind of big ticket item that would provide as wide a base of value as possible? And the one that we came up with was, okay, we know that we have a massive website. We have 1.5 million users, according to Google Analytics. So that's people declining cookies. So the real number is probably closer to about 2 million. And then we have the situation where Aalto.fi is our public website, but it's also our intranet. And we have 2 intranet instances. We have an intranet for students, of which we have about 14,000 students. And then we have an intranet for staff, and there's again about 5,000 staff. And if everyone knows anything about running an intranet, everyone knows about intranets is that that's the place where content goes to die, and you can't find anything on an intranet ever. And if you actually find something, there's even a risk that it's inaccurate or outdated in some way. Yeah. And then we know also that it's really difficult to build a search engine for this kind of stuff. So finding content, especially if it's search driven, is pretty tough. So we were like, okay, well, what if we could train GPT on our content, and then you could chat with the content. So you could ask any question. It would have the understanding that GPT has, but it would always answer based on content and then provide you reference links for whatever statement it produced. So that was the first exercise. And we set about doing that together with our IT. And basically, from a technology standpoint, the whole thing took about 2 weeks. And it was up and running and working. And since then, we've had a 4-month compliance and IT security struggle to finally get approval. And actually, yesterday we finally got clearance from IT security that we're good to go now. So we're going to be publishing it for the internal audience to start testing and playing around with next week, and that's pretty scary and pretty darn exciting at the same time. But of course, we didn't rest on our laurels when that was happening. We started working on other things as well. So we have other things in the pipeline. Because we need to start doing those now if we want to get IT security approval for them before Christmas.
And I do want to stop you there, Robert, because it sounds like you guys have, hallucinations is hotly talked about with AI. Sounds like you guys have found a way to get rid of those in some respects.
Yeah, we have. We actually, well, I was about to say that we also have another product which is then tied to translations. So being able to translate, all of our content is in 3 languages. So in Drupal, we have component-based translations, automatic translations that you can request and perform. And with anything that GPT does, you see hallucinations. And that's, of course, a massive risk when you're translating any kind of content or having it answer any kind of questions. Like if we have a strict process for something, like how do I get a new computer? And then the engine that we produce or like that we have all of a sudden says, well, just go to the store and buy whatever you want. And you're good to go. Then all of a sudden, all the people go, that sounds like fun. And then they go and buy the latest MacBook. And then, the university gets a little bit upset when our IT spending goes through the roof. So we needed to come up with a way to get rid of that. And the way that we've done that is with this chat feature. We've actually been able to take the warmth down to 0, meaning that it really needs to always provide the source for whatever answer, whatever statement it makes. And if there is no source for the question, if you try to ask it something that doesn't have anything to do with Aalto.fi, it would just say, I'm sorry, but I don't have any data for answering that question. So we've been able to do that in that respect. With the translation stuff, we were unable to do so. We did a lot of testing with GPT, but we just kept, even though we turned the warmth down and we tried to do different sort of training stuff, we just couldn't get rid of them. And we see small things cropping up here and there. So we decided actually to pivot away from GPT on that one and work instead with a translation AI called DeepL.
Yes.
Which is a European company based in Germany. So it makes it easier for us because they're GDPR compliant and things like that. But there, like, we see zero hallucinations. The translations are contextual, and tonality stays, which are great features because tone of voice and things like that are super important when you're working with translations or any kind of sort of official copy content. But we see basically zero hallucinations in that work.
Wow,
So far so good.
Yeah, that's great that you have that specific tool, which again, right, one of Drupal's main abilities is multilingual. So having a tool like that to help in combination with AI, really helpful for your users and students.
Super helpful for our content producers.
Yeah.
We have to work actually as a university in Finland. We actually need to operate in 3 languages. So we have English, and then we have Finnish, and then we have Swedish. Because Finland is actually a dual language country. We have Finnish and Swedish as official languages. Because Finland used to be part of Sweden. History lesson. A long time ago. So Swedish is still an official language here. So when we are a public organization, as all universities are, our content also needs to exist in Swedish. But the Swedish speaking population in Finland, or that are native speakers, is only 5%, meaning that it's not something that everyone is very comfortable working with. So having this kind of a translation tool and at least providing a foundation is very helpful for those kind of instances. And even though the sort of English language skills in general of the Finnish population are very high. English is probably the even more used now in Aalto in many respects than Finnish is, just because it's becoming such an international community. The skill level in actually producing content and writing content is not really where it needs to be. So having AI powered solutions for that get the job done. They don't make anything perfect, but they get the job done.
Yeah.
Just speeds up that kind of work. Are we gonna have our official kind of press releases and things like that translated by AI? Of course not. Like, we have language experts for that. Like, there we can't take any risks. But when you are producing basically, thousands of pieces of content per year, if 50-60% of those can be tackled automatically with a foundational translation that you can then work off of, rather than needing to translate every single word, then we're looking at pretty darn big savings. And also we get to eliminate the use of translation agencies, who they also use automated tools for this kind of stuff. In large part. So basically you can cut down on costs by having that. And again, producing this module, which is now available on Drupal.org for anyone to use, and actually has been expanded on already. So you can use GPT if you have API keys for that and don't want to use DeepL. It's a pretty darn good thing. Building the whole thing took, I think, about a week. And getting the APIs is 5 minutes if you register on DeepL and you're willing to pay. And I have my company credit card on there, so I see all of the bills, and people are using it a lot. We're paying, I think, about 10-15 euros a month, so $15. Whereas I think our general sort of spend on translations, we're talking about thousands, probably $1 on a monthly level across the university. So there's a lot of money to be saved there too.
That's great that you're using tools and AI to also help save money, which actually I want to get into, because a part of this is energy, right? The energy, and nowadays, like, data centers, they produce a lot of emissions. So tell us, how is this helping you guys save on energy costs, which is sometimes not even thought about?
Well, this is a thing where sort of taking AI into use, and the arrival of AI, of course, you're like, okay, we want to put AI everywhere. But then at the same time, Aalto's main goal, again, is to make the planet the better place. And one of the big things there, of course, is tackling sort of climate change. It's a big thing that we want to solve, or at least contribute to solving, because there's no one solution that's going to do so. So when we're talking about embedding AI, basically we're operating off of a framework of 3 principles that are really important to us. So if we're going to use AI, because AI, again, uses a lot of data and a lot of energy, then we need to make sure that it's either, one, contributing very positively to accessibility. And by accessibility, I don't mean the sort of digital accessibility legal requirements, those are of course part of accessibility, but accessibility in a wider space, i.e. access to content and information, greatly increasing access to content and information. And that means for all users. So it needs to tick that box, or then it needs to decrease our overall energy usage, which might feel a little bit weird because we just said that AI uses massive amounts of energy and data, but there are certain processes that can use even more energy and data. Like, for example, let's say that you want to understand how the salary system at Aalto works. You would go to aalto.fi, you would type in Aalto salary system, and you would get probably about 70 pages of content referencing the Aalto salary system. So you would then need to open a whole bunch of those different pages and scroll around trying to find the information that you want. So in this case, you basically loaded about 7, 8, 10 pages, plus you've crunched a search, or even refined that search. You crunched 2 or 3 searches. That's actually a surprisingly large amount of data that you've done. So if we can give you the answer immediately by just asking the AI assistant, in this case, or the chat with Aalto.fi feature, how does the salary system work? And then it crunches that and gives you the reply in a few seconds. Then again, you're actually saving energy as opposed to going through the process of loading all of those pages. And there, in this case, why we wanted to do the whole chat with Aalto.fi is the energy side of it, but also, again, the accessibility side of it. Because here you have access to information much faster than if you were doing all of those searches and looking through all of those results and formulating an opinion. We actually ran a whole bunch of these tests where, the average time to find the information you wanted was up over 30 seconds, almost getting into the minutes. And then using the AI, we're talking about seconds when you get the reply that you want or that you need. So that's the second box. And then the third box that we're operating from is it needs to vastly improve the productivity or the usage of a certain, product or tool. So we need to see either vast improvement to a service, greatly increased accessibility, or then a decrease in energy usage. And the sweet spot, of course, is if we can hit all 3 of these. So that's the kind of decision framework. So otherwise, we could take, GPT and we could do anything we wanted with it. But again, that just contributes to energy usage. And right now, the ICT sector in general is 10% of all greenhouse emissions globally, according to, at least according to the experts in Finland. And what they are talking, it's about 10% and it's growing exponentially. So it's going to be even more next year. So we want to see, can we start to do things so that we're decreasing that energy usage instead of contributing to it increasing.
And that's right. That's the overall goal, right, of AI, right? It's to help us find, complete tasks, find information faster. And right, going back to the curve, right? Once we get to that plateau of productivity, that's the hope, right? Is that we're using it efficiently enough that it does help us contribute better things to the planet.
That's the hope. That's where we want to be. The unfortunate side of the equation at the moment, and there's a lot of funny memes about this, is we wanted AI to do all of our menial tasks, like clean our house and wash our dishes and do those things. And instead, people are using it to generate memes and stuff like that. So, and even create, and this is a massive debate within our community at the moment, is when you're creating pictures, are you creating art or not? When you're using AI to do so, we have half of the faculty are saying, yeah, basically it's art, but then half of the faculty, of course, is saying, it's not. But I think the problem here is, again, finding those valuable use cases where you really are making something better, faster, less energy intense, and you are increasing productivity, or making, whatever work that you're working on better and faster. That's, of course, the sweet spot.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Robert. I mean, this has been great. Is there any type of resources we can share with people? Like if universities are trying to, utilize like AI like this, how can they get started?
Well, of course, AI is available everywhere. There are thousands of tools out there. Of course, I'm not saying take any tool into use. Do a lot of due diligence as to what you're taking into use. There are a lot of very good products out there. There are a lot of products that can do very bad things, and you should definitely steer clear of those. But I do hope and I do guess that almost every single university is working on having their own sort of instances and controlled instances of GPT. I know at least all of the major universities in Finland are doing so. I know that the University of Helsinki is already up and running with their own instance of GPT and adding more models, just as we are. And I bet everyone else is who's working, whose universities anyway focusing on technology is doing so. So having those own kind of secured instances are the route that you want to go. But if not, and you have security clearance to do so, then of course GPT is the models are the market leader at the moment. And applying for an API is a pretty easy task to do. But there are a whole bunch of other products out there, which are very, very compelling. Google has its set of stack. Of course, Microsoft is offering GPT models also through Bing and things like that. So there's an unending list of tools that you can use.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just something I want to go back to real quick is that, right, you've mentioned that internally within your organization, within Aalto, like everybody had different opinions. How did you get everyone on the same page in terms of like the goals that you guys wanted to accomplish?
I wouldn't say that we've gotten everyone on the same page. I think in the university setting, it's impossible to get everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
If there's one amazing thing about a university is no one will agree on a single topic. That's what makes universities amazing. And actually, I've laughed. We've been developing our newest version of Aalto.fi when we transitioned to Drupal. We launched that in 2018. So we've been on Drupal since 2018 with Aalto.fi, and we've had a development team ranging from, I think it was at its heyday, we had maybe about 13 developers, and now we have 5 full-time. I don't think we have produced a single feature yet or made a single change to the website yet that has been universally well received by our entire community. Someone is always going to be upset. That's just how universities work. But I think around the AI thing, we quite quickly found a sort of common language and common set of goals together with IT services. They were the ones who started the whole thing and said that, hey, we now have our own GPT instance up and running, and we just jumped on the train and we're like, great. And the movement is kind of, we now have a social channel in our own internal social network called Daily AI, where it's just growing and growing and growing. People are jumping in and they're doing all kinds of different things and sharing use cases and best practices and information on things that they find and test and do. Most of it is centered around what we call the Aalto AI Assistant, which is this sort of GPT based and like ChatGPT in essence, but there are other models coming where you can just select other models that you want to work off of, and plans to add even more going forward. So it's mostly centered around that and what you can do with that. But the like-minded people are kind of joining the cause. There are still, of course, those who are very uneasy and resistant to the whole thing. But again, those are the ones that we need to help with this kind of stuff, where we're embedding it where you need to do something.
Yeah, that's great. And it's awesome that you've been able to, develop this into something that's helped the university. And
and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, everyone who's in IT and who's been working on this, it's been pretty darn exciting, and all of the stuff that's in the pipeline is pretty exciting as well. We're looking at a whole bunch of different things that we can do with it. We currently have a keyword based search, which we are transitioning to become hybrid. It's based off of Elasticsearch, so we're going to go hybrid with that, basically meaning that we get a language model behind it and then have keyword based, but then we also have vectorized searches on there. But I'm already dreaming about why isn't that then also combined with this chat feature. So you can search and chat at the same time. So if you search for a word like marketing, the GPT engine will automatically realize that this can have different contexts within Aalto and just say, hey, this is going to give you a lot of results. Are you looking for study options in marketing, or are you looking for research in marketing, or are you looking to get in touch with marketing services because you need marketing help with whatever research project you're working on? And then you can say, oh, well, I need marketing help with my research project. And then it'll narrow down the search results kind of for you. So then you get this kind of assisted search kind of feature. So we have tons of ideas like this, and everyone's pretty excited about trying these out and then kind of seeing what happens and which ones work and which ones don't. I mean, this is where Aalto, again, that startup mentality is, where it's like, okay, agile, do the thing fast, try it, try to get internal approval for it as quickly as possible. The threshold for going live outside of the community is, of course, much, much higher. You have reputational risk and things that come in to play, but from an internal standpoint, go as fast as you can, get it live, get it tested, and see if it works. And then if it doesn't work, then fail fast, shut it down, and then get the lessons learned. Why didn't it work? Why didn't we get what we expected? And what can we learn from that? And then just the reason, once you know why you failed, figure out like, okay, how can we start this again? That's not a deterrent. That doesn't mean, okay, we failed, so we stop. It's more of a, okay, what can we learn from this? What can we get out of this? And how can we try again and be successful the second or third or fourth time around?
That's great. And again, to your point, it's a different mentality in terms of innovating within a university, which is super cool. So, well, that's great. Thank you, Robert. Yeah.
Drupal Pupils, the most Drupally pupily place on the planet.